Rolling here. Okay, Tom, we're rolling. So is it okay if I go ahead and get us started officially?
Take it away.
All right, you're the man. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here for a special Friday edition of our Bloomerang webinar series. We're going to be talking about how to speak well enough, I should say, to your family of supporters during this wacky time we got going on here. I'm so glad to see a full room, and hope all of you are staying happy and healthy, productive. We're all thinking about you, and just glad you're here. Hopefully this will be a good productive hour for you, and maybe a little bit of a distraction from what's going on in a good way. So I'm Steven. I'm over here at Bloomerang. I'm going to be moderating today's discussion as always. And just a couple of housekeeping items real quick. Just want to let you all know that we are recording this session, and we'll be sending out the recording as well as the slides later on today. So if you have to leave early, or maybe you got an appointment later on, or a family member comes in and interrupts you, that might happen to me. It's okay. We're all in this together. Don't worry, we'll get you that recording later on today. But most importantly, a lot of you have already done this, but please feel free to use that chat box and the Q&A box. We love for these sessions to be interactive. So don't be shy. Don't sit on your hands. I'll be active in the chat for sure, but we'll try to get to some questions, as many as we can in whatever time we have remaining. You can also do that on Twitter. I'll keep an eye on the Twitter feed as well. And if you are new to Bloomerang, if you've never heard of Bloomerang, this is just for context. We are not only a provider of webinars, we love doing these webinars. We do them just about every day, it seems like these days over the past month or so. But what we are most known for is our donor management software. So if you're curious about that or interested, check us out. You can visit our website. You can watch all kinds of videos and get to know us. But if this is your first Bloomerang webinar, welcome. We'd love to have you. Hopefully you'll join us again for future sessions, and we got a lot of them. So thanks for being here. Without further ado, I'm so excited. My hero, literally my fundraising hero, is joining us from beautiful Rhode Island. Tom Ahern. Tom, you doing okay? You guys are hunkered down up there? You doing okay?
Yeah, although actually because of the lack of hair cutting, my hair now looks like your monkey.
I think it looks good. I think you could bring back you got a little bit of a bouffant going there.
Well, I could.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to be able to shave my own head, but on the webcam view, you can't tell what a bad job.
That just sounds like an emergency room visit waiting to happen.
Yes, it probably is. I would come over and trim your hair if we were closer.
Oh,
but I wouldn't be sanitary either. Wow, this is Tom's idea, folks. He reached out to us. He wanted to do something for us, given the unprecedented nature of the situation today. So we're really grateful to have Tom sacrifice his time and his knowledge here for you all. If you don't know Tom, it's kind of hard for me to encapsulate who Tom is, other than just someone I look up to, and a lot of other people do for donor communications. He's written so many books on the topic. You're up to 7 books now, right? Is there a 7th book coming out, or I can't remember?
I just get bored and I write another one. Yeah.
And they're great. He's usually all over the country helping folks, speaking at conferences. And you're just going to benefit from his wealth of knowledge here today. He's put together this presentation special. There's brand new stuff in here, brand new examples, and I don't want to take any more time away from that. Okay. So I'm going to pipe down, and I'll stop sharing. Tom, you can bring up your slides. This is always the fun, awkward transition.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do it or I can do it. I wanted to get me off there.
I will turn your camera off. I think I have the power. There we go.
The only thing, and here's the first lesson from iMotion studies. If anything is moving, your brain is automatically hardwired to follow it. So
right.
Have somebody up there yapping away.
I'll turn mine off too.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Well, here it is. Here it is. And the provenance of this is I got a call from my local community foundation, and they said, "Oh my God," or something along those lines. "We need a show for the grantees, for all the nonprofits they support," and they support about, I don't know, 1,000 plus in a year. And everybody's just kind of their hair's on fire. They don't know what to do next. They're under orders not to leave their home. Now in Rhode Island, where I live, you have to, if you go out in public, you have to wear a mask. And the question is, did fundraising die? Did it just die? Did we hit the pause button? And so I started calling around because I know a lot of experts around the world, and I got to shut my window because my wife is out there raking and on the phone, and she's not a soft-voiced person. Anyway, so this is what resulted after I talked to lots of people, and so there's some good stuff in here, I think. Let's see, it would be nice though if it would actually advance. There you go. So here are some of, and this is going to be quick because this part, this is what some of the fears were that people were expressing. And often it wasn't the fundraiser who was expressing the fear. It was more like board members saying, we shouldn't be asking for money now. It's insensitive during this time of crisis, and so forth. But what I found, this is Jeff Brooks. He's a good friend of mine, but he's also one of the top veteran fundraising copywriters in the world. And he has a Future Fundraising Now blog. It's free. If you don't subscribe already, you should, because every day you'll get a nice piece of smart insight and information. And this is one of his new columns. And he's addressing all these various issues. Fundraising now is insensitive, and then he explains why that's not the case. Or somebody will complain. Yes, they will. Or fundraising now is exploitative, which these comments on the side are by me, by the way, because I have these mental conversations. Yeah, it might get worse. Yeah. Oh, come on. Don't, et cetera, et cetera. But what's down here in red is the kind of the bottom line for it. Going silent on donors has only one guaranteed outcome, and that is your fundraising will shrink. So this is not the time to go that route. Let's look at what is actually happening out in the world. Mark Phillips, who's based in London in the UK, is the head of Blue Frog, which is a major creative agency, does amazing work, and also has the advantage right now of constantly surveying donors, people who are charitably inclined, to find out what their attitudes are at the moment. So every day almost on Twitter you can find Mark, and you should follow him. Twitter is where I get most of my professional information these days. This just came up. What he discovered was, if people were not worried about finances, they saw no reason not to continue giving to the charities they care about. Right. So that was his finding. That's not a guess. That was a piece of research. Bloomerang also contributed a nice note here, because I think Stephen, you can correct me. You have something like 8,000 clients or something.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
A huge base of statistically valid information there. And what they found was that since the crisis has happened, their customers, the Bloomerang customers, have raised $1.35 million more than they did during the same time period last year. Now that's an interesting thing, and doing those year-on-year comparisons are very helpful. Now, obviously, in some way, this is not the time of year when many charities are out there, beating on doors for fundraising, because the giving season in the United States tends to be October, November, December, maybe a little bit into January. other, that's where it's kind of concentrated. So people, what I see here anyway, is that people are now on higher alert. And by the way, there are some case studies on the Bloomerang site under the freebies menu that you can study. And I'm going to share a couple with you right now. This one, we canceled the event and we made more money. In some cases, I know there are some long-suffering fundraisers out there that are like, oh God, I wish we could cancel our event, and and maybe you could make more money too. Now, this is an education foundation. For those of you who may not be familiar with that kind of group, they raise money in the community for extra things at the public schools that aren't covered by budgets. And so particularly when you get into school systems that have a lot of what are called at-risk kids, you have needs for all sorts of additional programming, or maybe even food. Maybe they're not getting enough to eat. And so they raise money for very good things. And they'd been doing that for 27 years. And all of a sudden this happens. So they sent out an email that canceled the 27th annual fundraiser. That you can see huge donate now button right there, and very visible. And they then, after they canceled it, because of course that was the thing that they had to do, uh, state law, government, federal law. The next thing they did was announce this Kid Booster Crisis Fund, which was essentially to replace the donations that were lost by not having the 27th annual. And so now it's been introduced, and this is what happened on the day of the event. So they would have happened on this day, and instead they did it virtually, and they kind of supplied the people, the people on the receiving end, the email list, with a bunch of things that they might have seen had the event actually happened. There's some drumming going on. There's some Lego business going on. You get some drama club stuff going on, and so forth. And what you can see up here, and it's very, this to me is all that needs to be said probably, is that when they no longer had the expenses associated with the event, like facility rental, food and costs, and so forth and so on, they actually netted more money. So they did hit their goal. The goal was 100,000, but had it been a normal year, they would have kept 70,000 of that, and 30,000 would have been in costs. This year, they got to keep it all, and in fact, they went over goal, so it's over 100,000. Here's another one, same thing, Peace Community Center in Tacoma. And this first, they send out an email. That's the boss there, sending out an email canceling the big annual benefit. Now, this is a big annual benefit, and it's big in the sense of 100,000 big. And that they put that into students and kids going to college. As you can see from the next email, the one on the right, where she's holding her banner. Where is she going? She's going to St. Martin's University. Yay! And there were 5 emailed appeals. So there was a whole campaign, 5 emailed appeals leading up to the day of that ask of the canceled event, excuse me. And that was the final ask you just saw. And then once it's over, the executive director comes back, and she made a little video where she thanks the community for all the things you've done. And it's a wonderful, very warm thank you. And you have the little thermometer there showing that not only did they make goal, they went way over goal, almost $18,000 over goal. So this is, when you give people a job to do in a crisis, they are on alert. So anyway, what they can do for you. One of the things that I ran across, and some of you may already have seen this, is a video. It's available online at Better Fundraising Company, which is out in Seattle. Stephen Screen does the video. It's pretty quick too. Um, and it's for an emergency appeal, and it's a template. And it says that it's a template that works. Well, how do we know it works? Well, first of all, I called people who used it to see what happened, and they uh, they were really pleased with this. So this is what one of these emergency email appeals looks like. And you can see it has a donate button, not just at the bottom, but at the top. In fact, the one at the top is probably more important than the one at the bottom in terms of people responding. And I'm gonna take you through this a little bit, but one of the people who responded was me. Now this is in San Antonio. I like San Antonio, but I don't live in Texas. I happen to know Steve Herlick, who's the director of development there, and he sent it to me just so that I could see what he had come up with. And I was so touched by what he had written that I actually became an accidental donor. I became a spontaneous donor. And what they were trying to do was outfit, they have senior living facilities for people with low income, and isolation is an even bigger problem for people of a certain age, and that's what we've been handed is, enforced isolation. So they wanted to retrofit the two campuses where they have housing units with high-speed internet that would allow people to stream and do all sorts of things like that, plus do telemedicine, things like that. And that was going to cost $22,000. So that was the goal. They were going to come in, they were going to do it all, and it was going to cost $22,000. And they broke that down, and they said basically it's about $32 per housing unit. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I could help one person for 32, or two for 64, 96, three. I went with three, and that in fact turned out to be the average um, choice. I mean, the average was like 112, but what most people chose was the three fur. And here's some more data from Steve. The opening rate, which is astonishing, it's almost 50% opening rate, and that you just don't get that in email, not these days anyway. Click-through rate also very, very high, almost 10%. Within 24 hours after they sent this email out, just once, by the way, they had already gotten halfway to their goal. They had brought in almost 11,000, and it was sent out to around 1,000 people, and 85 donors responded within those 24 hours. They sent it out again, but also Steve started calling the people who were on his list as major donors, saying, hey, we're halfway there. Can you help us get all the way there? And yeah, basically within about 48 hours, they had met their goal. Now, the same template, as you can see at the bottom, was being used at the same time all across the country, because all these people watched the Stephen Screen video, and they had been reporting back, and that it had already raised at other small charities about $1.5 million. Here's what it is. So you'll have this, and Stephen, I sent him these slides so that he could convert them into a PDF, which can be then distributed to all of you, so that you'll have this in your archives and can just look at it when you feel like it, for reminders, because I mean, don't bother taking notes, you'll have that. But look at some of the 8 points here. First, you come right out and state that the message is urgent. I don't normally send you emails like this, but these are desperate times. And get straight to the point. Describe how the situation that is coronavirus is hurting either your beneficiaries or your cause or the organization itself. And in the case here with Stephen's video, they're basically talking about moms who've lost their jobs and therefore are edging towards homelessness because they don't have any income now. And it goes on, ask for a special gift to help. Now, not a generic gift, but a special gift to provide emergency housing assistance. Notice the amount, $33. That's a good amount. It's not too much. It's a little higher than the national average amount might be, which I think is closer to $25. And it's affordable, and that's very important. You want people not to have any mental reservations, hesitations. You want them to say, yeah, I could do that. And note what it says after the word note in red. Most donors, this is Stephen talking, most donors are not going to read past here. In other words, they've made their decision by here. And so you know, everything else here is backing that up, giving it more credence maybe, but for the most part, you're done. Now, a lot of charities, and I need to point this out, a lot of charities don't get to the point until 3 or 4 paragraphs down. And that's a basic copywriting mistake. You shouldn't do that. That it wastes everybody's time. For instance, your time, because you have to write this blah blah that nobody reads or cares about. But the more importantly, your consumer, the person reading it, they're just bored until you get it. So get to the point. Get to the point. Particularly now, because everybody's being assaulted by all sorts of attempts to grab a little piece of their attention span. You might have a little story in there, and there's an example there about Angie. She waited tables and then lost her job. You refer to Angie again because you need that poster child. You could save her, Angie, and her kids from being homeless. Then you go to, oh yeah, and by the way, it's not just Angie. The need is bigger than just one person. It's a lot of people, so whatever you can afford would be welcome. And here's your rationale. That you didn't have this crisis in your budget. Of course you didn't. Nobody did. And now, so you're reaching out to the community or to whomever and saying, will you help? These are special times. Will you help? And you emphasize that urgency, the emergency gift. Your action is needed now. Okay, so that's the 8-point formula. They put a donate button top and bottom. The subject line they used, and that Steve Hurlick didn't bother rewriting. He used it verbatim. Coronavirus consequence, emergency funds needed. So we know it works. So don't try to get creative. Just use, you know, what we already can depend on. The length, don't go too long, 300 words or less. Grade level, this is something you can score in Microsoft Word if you turn on that function, grammar. Or you can go to, what is it called, Hemingway, I think, and it'll score your prose for you. And I saw that the other day, and it was pretty neat, actually, because it not only scores your prose, but it tells you which of your sentences are harder to comprehend quickly. Because grade level has nothing to do with vocabulary. It has only to do with the speed at which a brain can consume the prose. And so you want to have a low grade level. Trust me, it doesn't. People say, "Oh, I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. They all went to university." Yeah, I know. We all went to university. Doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. This is about me being able to consume your prose at light speed. And just know that you're going to have to probably, you know, send out more of these than you might feel comfortable, because people are ignoring emails. There's so much of it coming in now. And the research, by the way, on that is quite clear. Now, I took Steve's emergency e-appeal, and I took the 8 things that he is recommending, and I numbered where they were in his appeal so that you could understand a little better how to execute this. Now, here's somebody who used the very same emergency appeal, Ruth Frazier. She's at a senior center in Florida. And she kind of dolled it up a little bit. That's Ruth there. And she decided, well, not only am I going to do it as an e-appeal, I'm going to do a companion direct mail appeal for people that maybe we don't have email addresses for, but we do have postal addresses for. So she did a direct mail. It wasn't that the copy was any different. It was pretty much exactly the same. And this is what happened with her. What she did, she sent me a picture. This is from her office or wherever she is. I don't know, probably at home, like the rest of us. But she's holding uh, the checks that came in the first day. That's a pretty thick stack. And that stack there, 105 responses she's holding, amounted to over $17,000. At the same time, the email appeal brought in 23,000. At the same time, one of her, the fond supporters, a major donor, said, "Hey, I'll put up 50,000 as a match, and you can use that to stimulate giving." And so she did. And so these appeals also have the match in them. And within about 48 hours, she had $100,000 come in. So these are good times, depending, of course, not all causes, but they can be good times. Now, Lisa Sargent, who, like Jeff Brooks, is one of the world's great copywriters. When I say great, I mean their stuff gets superb results. I don't mean I like the way they write, because that's irrelevant in direct mail. All that matters is the revenue that comes in. And she gets incredible revenue. And she's saying this on a tweet just recently: "You're going to get sick of using this language, but people do respond to it. So don't do what many charities do. They overthink this stuff. Don't give it a second thought. Just do it and use the language." Now, here's Amy Vance, and she's also a fundraising expert down in Tennessee. And I talked with her to see what she was up to, because she was busy, I could tell. And she said, "Well, this is where we are. This is how I'm writing for my charities, or how I'm advising that they write. You have to have empathy, transparency, vulnerability, and the final thing she said is you have to be bold." And I thought, well, this is going to be a problem, because charities don't like being bold. They're afraid of bold. They're afraid they're going to offend somebody somehow. And so they cut the corners, they back off, they are anything but bold. They're bland, almost institutionally bland. And if if you have the unfortunate circumstance where 3 people comment on some kind of appeal, it's going to lose all its flavor. It'll just be water by the time you're done. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do. So now you know it. And what you're going to hear, because we hear this from students, when Moshianic is an online provider of fundraising training, and I did a course for them, and Jeff Brooks did a course for them, and some other people of note did courses for them. And one of the students who was learning how to write direct mail sent this, because they have a private, which is very good. They have a private Facebook group where people can say anything they want, and it doesn't circulate. And she was reporting back. She wrote the letter. Everybody loved, all the faculty at Moshianic loved the letter. It was strong. It was conversational. It was flattering to the donor. All the things it's supposed to be. And she writes back, and I'm getting pushback that it's too cheesy. Now we're all going, cheesy, that's great. Cheesy is fabulous. More cheese. Let's do the whole cheese boat here. and yet you have management, I think it's mismanagement is how it should be spelled, who has no training, absolutely no training, but has an opinion the size of the Goodyear blimp, and they're saying, well, we don't talk that way. Well, that's just wrong, and it's a form of ignorance. So what you do need to know, and again, I can't help you with your own situation because I'm not in human resources, uh, is you just need to know that if insiders feel uncomfortable with what you're about to send out, email, digital, print, doesn't matter, then that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. They are not your target audience. Okay. And here's an example. So notice the subject line: coronavirus crisis, emergency funds needed. Ooh, where have we heard that before? Well, this is Julie, uh, and she's the ED at the United Way of Pickens County. And she took the little video from Stephen's screen, and she did it too. She, wrote an appeal right over that template, and it did great. And she got in touch with me because we were kind of buds, and she said, I just got cussed out by a major donor for sending this out. Now, is that a bad thing? No. This is another thing. We don't, those of us who have been trained in direct mail writing, we have our little dark secrets. One of which is, if you don't get complaints, you probably didn't write something strong enough to matter. So we expect complaints. We actually want complaints. We are, it's like nobody complained. Oh my God, what did I do? And so you will get some complaints. That's just human nature. Not everybody's going to love everything you do. We can't please everybody all the time, blah, blah, blah. And just don't worry about that. If anything, you could use it as an excuse to have some kind of dialogue. All right. So continuing on with this, never waste a good crisis. Churchill said it, and won World War II with a lot of help. Rahm Emanuel said it when he was chief of staff for President Obama, and they managed to get at least the beginnings of national health care put in place, because never waste a good crisis and get stuff done that you couldn't get when there wasn't a crisis. Now, my version of this is, right now, do something that you haven't been doing. I mean, you can't have an event, so do something else, or do a virtual event, or do a non-event. People have raised quite a bit of money with unevents in the last few years because people kind of, were worn out. They didn't really want another event. Move some of your donors to monthly giving, and that's very important for your bottom line and your future and your sustainability. Upgrade some of your higher donors if you have such, and then get 5% of your donors to include you in their wills. This is all from a major communications group up in Canada called Hillborn. And so what do we know here about monthly giving? Well, I put it in red. This is Erica Worsdorp, who has published a book, a very good book called The Sleeping Giant, on monthly giving. And she's saying, now this is a good time to ask your donors for a special gift or a monthly gift. Just keep it short and sweet. Okay, and then the rest, if you want to read it on your own. Now, here's the Norman Rockwell Museum. Like every facility-based charity, they don't have any visitors. And so now what are they doing? Well, they have put up a ton of programming that is all virtual and with people and their kids at home and all the time now. It's been very helpful, I think, to parents, for one thing. But notice I put a red arrow on it. That's not there in real life, but I put it there to point to the $5 amount, because monthly giving is different slightly in certain slight ways than annual giving. One way it's different is you're asking for this from me each month. So don't start by having like $30, because most people are going to go, I'm not going to give you $30 a month. That's ridiculous. I can do math. And this is what Erica Worsdorp recommends, have the lowest amount starting point you're comfortable with, and she does recommend $5, and you'll acquire a lot more monthly donors if you have a starting amount. You can always upgrade them to something higher down the road, but get them in the door first. Initially, it's not about the money. Initially, it's about them saying, yes, okay, I will be part of your family. All right, and then here's some more good news from Erica. We now know, research, that 75%, three quarters, three out of four, of charitable bequests are coming from monthly donors. Now, monthly donations, 7 times more likely to leave a bequest. And most of you, I've harped on, you've got to have a bequest marketing program. I've harped on that for many years. Mostly all charities I speak to ignore me. And doesn't matter, it's my hobby, really. And I'll just keep harping on it. But I wanted to show you, here's a client who didn't ignore me, and what a bequest actually looks like. This is a real bequest. Notice the date, March 19th, 2020. So about a month ago. And oh, look at that amount. Gee, I wish we'd get more than one of those. 74,000, almost $75,000. That's a real bequest for charity. And it just came in, and you could get these things too if you only had a charitable bequest marketing program, but you don't. And is it easy to do? Oh yeah, it's the easiest money you'll ever fundraise for. But you haven't gotten around to it yet. And you listen to me yap on every year and never still get around to it. Now's your time. That's what I'm saying. Don't waste this opportunity. Now's your time. Don't waste this crisis. Okay, I'm going to go over some basics for beginners, because you can't hear this often enough. It can't be reminded often enough. I'm the author of this. I have to be reminded of it all the time. There's only one real bottom line purpose for donor communications, and it is not about asking for money. It is about making your donors feel good, or your prospective donors feel good. And you can do that in many different ways. They can feel proud of what they've just done, made that gift, contributed to the community. You can tell them how important they are. You can bring some kind of entertainment into their home, tell them something they didn't know, surprise them, point out to them how powerfully, strongly needed they are. Those things will produce emotional resonance in people. And we're not, by the way, we're not talking opinion here. This is where the state of the art is in psychology as far as philanthropy is concerned. What you need to deal with is what is already in the head of your prospect or your donor. And this is what they're thinking when they make that gift. Oh, I helped somebody. They can see a person in their head. Oh, I helped her. She might have been homeless. I helped her. Now the charity, this is from the Better Fundraising Company, wonderful stuff. And they put this out, and you get this free every Friday if you subscribe, some kind of graphic like this. But the charity's thinking, oh, we have another supporter. They really love us, the organization. And that is not accurate. She is not your donor. You do not own her. You have been invited into her select circle of charities that she has chosen for her own reasons and values and experiences and regrets and fears and angers and hopes. is one of her charities. So you're one of her charities. So here's a wonderful Soy Dog Foundation. Most of you may not have heard of that, but it is a small animal welfare charity based in Bangkok, Thailand. And yet they raise through Facebook alone something like $350,000. Oh, pardon me, 3 zeros there. I missed out on $350,000 a month, year in, year out, year in, year out. And it was a small animal welfare charity in Bangkok, Thailand. Now it's a rather much larger animal welfare charity, taking on national campaigns and doing all sorts of stuff. And they still raise all their money on Facebook. And this is a typical ad for them. And I have labeled it with these voice balloons, is this me, is this me? Because this is how I think of when I'm writing stuff for my clients. Anything I say has to earn its keep. If I write this sentence, when Melito was found unable to walk and terrified of everyone, many would have said she had no future, but not people like you, because I need to speak to your heart, not your brain. Well, it is in your brain. Your emotional seat is in the front of your skull. But I need to speak to what is metaphorically your heart, your emotions. And I need to say, is this you? So you read the next line, and notice how short, by the way, this entire Facebook ad is. Please go to this address, the link, to join a special group of animal lovers who are changing the world for homeless. And it's one, is this me? Yeah, I want to be part of the special group. Yes, I love animals. I want to change the world for homeless animals. And then there's a little video showing how she went from dragging her butt around to now she's got wheels. So, it's it's not about you. I mean, it is in a sense, but you're just a means to an end. You're doing good. I give you a gift to also do good through you. You're my means to my end to feel good about myself. And so here's another letter. This is an appeal that worked. We study success, not guess. And I know exactly what happened with this appeal because this is a client and I saw the results. And it's everything here. I've labeled it here with arrows. They're not on the original, but that's what I'm trying to do as I write this. I want it to be saying, is this you? Is this you? Is this you? How about this? Is this you? How about this? Is this you? And it goes on and on and on and on. Now, here's our time. Another thing you don't want to waste is a crisis. You can talk differently. You don't have to be the uptight charity that you might have been in the past. You don't have to be have that institutional voice that you might have had in the past. You talk vulnerable human to vulnerable human, people are going to respond. If you do talk like an institution, it's not going to happen. You present me with no joy. And you can actually do a lot for your donors right now. And this is more psychology. It's from Jen Shang. First, though, some evidence. This was at the beginning of the coronavirus crisis. And Angela Bride, again, you can see I have a Twitter icon there. That's because I want you to know how much of this the content in this show came from people I follow on Twitter. That's where some of the best fundraising professionals are leaving their best advice. And she was just reporting what they did. Our team sent simple, brief emails to check in. And they got all these responses back, some of them lengthy responses, because people crave care and connection. And that's what you can do. Now you can thank me for my gift, but it's not about the money for the donor. You want to thank me for who I am. You want to thank me for my identity. You want to thank me for getting past my inertia and actually doing something, acting on behalf of the people you serve. And if you do that, that makes the donor feel good, and they'll like you back. And by the way, that's more of the new psychology. There's very firm evidence that if you show that you like me, that is your supporters, your volunteers, your donors, I will like you back. It's a form of built-in reciprocity. Now here's lifeboats, and this was March 17th, their update on that day. Things are getting bad, and lifeboats is over in the UK, and the guy you see here, the good-looking, competent-looking guy you see there, is a volunteer, and he's one of the volunteers. They're all volunteers who jump in a boat in rough seas, go out and rescue people from drowning, and they do it over and over and over, and they are respected and beloved in the United Kingdom, island kingdom, of course. And what they did is they investigated with their donors. They asked their donors some simple questions. Tell us 5 adjectives to describe who you are. And then they asked, give us 5 adjectives that describe why you support us, the Lifeboats charity. And they collected these adjectives, came in from thousands of donors, and made them into word clouds, and then could see immediately that there were certain words that were much bigger and that overlapped. And one of those words was caring, which led their copywriter to create this special message for you. You're part of our crew, and crew members look out for each other. The reason that language exists is because they knew something about their donors. Why do I give? What part of my self-identity is triggered by my gift to lifeboats? Well, I care about people being saved, and and that's what they're reflecting here. And this is what you are. All your donor communications are basically mirrors that you hold up to your supporters, to that list, to your prospects, and you say to them, this is who you are. In our world, this is who you are. You're kind, caring, compassionate, fair, social justice, generous person. And you actually use these adjectives. Now here, this is one of my personal favorite charities. It's a orphanage in Tijuana, Mexico, which this year or last year in 2019 was chosen as one of the most dangerous places on the face of the earth for murder. And yet these kids have no protectors. They're on the streets. They're orphans. They are orphans, and they're scrounging food. They're not nothing. Their life is going nowhere, and they get into this orphanage. Now they get fed, they get clothed, they get medicine, they get care, they have a safe place to sleep, and they go to school. And because they've been around for 30 years, we also know that they eventually mostly go to college. So you started life as an orphan on the streets of a murderous city, and now you're in college. But what is really great about them is their way of thanking their donors. And this is a typical from Beth Bial, who is the executive director. And she's writing to me, Corona cowers before you, Tom. You're the whole enchilada. And she's showing me what the kids are eating and using that common little phrase. And she's talking about life as it is. But it's tough down in Tijuana, probably tougher than it is other places. But check out little Maria in the above photo. These kids, our kids, are getting 3 delicious meals a day during this crisis. And it's all because you care, Tom. You're feeding these hungry children. And it's all because I care. And I will open anything they send me because it always makes me feel good. If your opening rates for your emails are not very high, it's because you're not delivering any emotional gratification to me, to the people you're sending it to. So this is a good time to work on this. This is your time to not be institutional, to put a human face on your charity. today's identity, we're not going to get too deep into identity-based fundraising, so-called, which is the new shiny old thing, and that is based on psychology and that kind of research, and in about 15 years of testing that's just now starting to hit the streets. But one of the identities everybody has is their today identity. And, what would urge me to say yes to an appeal? Well, or make me feel good. Let's leave appeals out for the moment. Right now, according to Jen Chang, who is the world's leading psychologist studying philanthropic behavior, people feel, these are her words, paralyzed, confined, victimized, disarmed, and powerless, none of which are comfortable. Mark Phillips, Blue Frog, he has a blog called Queer Ideas, which only means they're ideas you probably didn't think of. Weird ideas is probably what the synonym. He was thinking, why are people stocking up on toilet paper? And how much of this stuff can you use in a lifetime? But he investigated a little bit, and basically people were feeling out of control. And buying toilet paper made them feel like they had some kind of control. And all they're trying to deal with is to get this uncomfortable feeling of helplessness. And for another, this is also part of Mark Phillips' research on a daily basis with donors. For those who are financially secure, life is quite easy. Yet they are frustrated and they are guilty that they can't do more to be part of some solution. That's what you're offering to them. You're saying, here, there's a problem, there's a solution, but we need your help. It won't be possible without your help. And here's one more from Mark. As a fundraiser, you're providing a public service. You are giving people a chance to be part of a solution. And that's what you can bring to me. And if you do bring that to me, we worry, oh, we shouldn't, it's impolite to raise money during a crisis. No, that is fantastic. I don't know. I don't know how to classify that. That is not, that is, it's wrong. And what you can bring to your base, your supporters, your potential supporters, is connection to this world that has gone mad. You can tell them how much you care for them. You can just say, how are you doing? Greenpeace Spain just sent out a survey. It did very, very well. And I believe, if I'm not, I think the subject line was, how are you doing today? And that was it. And they got a huge opening rate and a huge response rate, because they indicated, and they weren't trying to stealth in an appeal with that survey. They actually asked people some questions about, how are things going? If you show that you are thinking about your target audience, they will like you. So this is the GAM Theater. It's a wonderful small theater group, does great stuff. But they're closed, of course, they have to be. And so they're putting on premieres of shows they're inventing on YouTube and Facebook. That's how they're keeping their audience happy. Here's the Animal Rescue League of Boston, and every couple of days they send out a cute break, a virtual care package. It's a care package. Yeah, there's probably a click here to give button somewhere, but mostly it's about you going, oh, that makes me feel so good. And they're also reminding you in this, as you see on the right there, a wild rescue you made possible. A beaver was rescued, and you did that. And here's some tips for at-home pets and so forth. Here's the Friends of the Blue Hills, which is the prominent quote mountain, in air quotes, outside of Boston. It's the high point outside of Boston. It's really not that big, but anyway, it's a wonderful place. Friends of the Blue Hills. And Judy is just terrific at these things. She's always coming up with something. In this case, she came up with a virtual book club. that people can be part of. They'll even sell you the book, and you can be part of it through Zoom. So I'm going to end sort of with Jen and her to-do list. This is her recommendations. Remember, psychologist. You want to connect with a person, each person on your list this week. Well, next week now, I guess Friday. Number two, you want to say something caring to each of them next week. Then you want to thank them next week, each of them. And then you want to thank them again and again and again and throughout the crisis. And you want the ultimate goal here is for them to have a memory, a positive memory of what you did during this crisis to make them feel cared for. That's your goal. Now, what does our immediate future hold? This, again, Better Fundraising Company, and they looked at past crises of different kinds, the dot-com crash, 2000, 2008 financial calamities, um, natural disasters, and so forth and so on. So how does giving go? And they found that there's a kind of predictable flow to it. You have what they call the bump, and that's where people are all stirred up and they know, well, a lot of people in trouble now, I must help, if I can, of course, if I can. And that goes for 2 to 4 weeks. And then for about 4 to 6 months, you have what they call the slump, which is going to be a little bit lower than normal, but we're getting into the summer, so it would have been a little bit lower than normal anyway, probably for many charities. And then we're going to have the surge, and that's as we start to, instead of having 11 pieces of bad news in every 12 pieces of news, we start to get 2 or 4 or 5 or 6 or half or more of those pieces of news are lights at the end of the tunnel. And we start to see, the world will continue. And then we get to a new normal, and not just Better Fundraising, but Mark Phillips over in the UK with his research is predicting that giving will come out the other side into the new normal higher than it currently was before this crisis. So a couple of things you can get for free. Learn to say thank you. This is based on research, and all you have to do is go to the philanthropyinstitute.org.uk under reports, and you can download it as a PDF. And then there's this, also a PDF. All you have to do here is Google the irrefutable canons of fundraising and Jerry Panis, and it'll pop up right away. I've done it a couple of times. And this is an amazing book. And Jerry, unfortunately, deceased 2 years ago, and he was one of the best fundraisers ever. And he's a great storyteller, and he put all the things he's learned over a long and profitable career into this book. So you should get it. That's what we got to say today. Hey, Stephen, you out there?
Wow, that was awesome, Tom. Thank you for doing this for us. Getting a lot of good chats and comments in here. So thank you. Everyone, I know we sent out a ton of links. We're going to email all that stuff to you. We'll send you the slides, a recording. It'll all be in the slides. If you can't find something, email me, email Tom. Tom, thanks for doing this. I know you're super busy, and this was your idea. You put it together short notice. So really, really appreciate it. It's almost 3 p.m., so I'm going to ask you 2 quick questions, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are asking these variations of these questions. But Tom, I don't know about you, but the number one thing I've heard over the last month or so is we are not essential. We're not, providing masks. We're not feeding families who lost their jobs. My response to those people is, of course you are essential. You're essential to your donors. What have you been saying to those people? How can you encourage those folks?
How can I? Well, first of all, don't go quiet.
Yeah.
That is the number one. It's going to be tough for some charities to get to the other side of this. It could take 6 months or more. And that's not because you're bad at business. It is because small businesses in general, which is what most charities are, only have 3 to 4 weeks of operating cushion, and then they're done. And that we know from the Department of Labor. So, it is going to be a little tricky for a while. Anything, a facility that depended on programming, live programming, well, they're just bustling with virtual programming instead, just to keep the mental doors open. Remember, this is about connection. They connected with you. You're part of their identity, part of their world. Just keep saying, how's it going? How's it going? Here's how it's going for us. How's it going for you?
I really appreciate that you shared animal rescue examples, environmental rescue, conservancy examples, because I feel like all those people have just as a compelling story to tell to the people who care about those issues.
Well, and actually, the conservancy people, I ran into the head of the Audubon Society here in my state, Rhode
Hmm.
Island, and he said our parking lots are full
Wow.
because you know, full of families, for one thing, taking their kids out and getting some nature put into them.
Yeah.
It's and this there can be, for many charities, a silver lining. You might have to chase it a little bit.
Hmm.
You might have to be imaginative. This is not a good time to not be imaginative. Take
Yeah.
chances, do something different, take advantage, try stuff.
Last thing before I let you go, just in the last 48 hours, I've heard a lot more chatter around the stimulus checks, specifically for people that may not need them and
Right.
may be willing to pay them forward because they are in a good place financially. Any
Yes.
advice for maybe soliciting some of those funds? I know that seems a little, maybe a little tricky, but it seems like there could be some money available out there.
I can verify that because I talked to my sister just a few days ago, Stephen, and she's a retired teacher, 30 years in the inner city, and has a wonderful pension and great health care and all the rest of
Yep.
the things that you get when you're in a union like that. And she doesn't need a $1,500 stimulus check.
Right.
And so she said, out of the blue, I didn't ask her, she said, I'm just going to send it over to, and she named a charity in her town, where she lives in West Hartford, Connecticut, that she loves. And she volunteered there for a long, long time, and that's who's getting the money.
I love it. So
Yeah,
maybe if they follow your playbook here, that could be the result.
yeah. I mean, people are. This is one of the key reasons why a lot of charities do not get into bequest marketing is they start by thinking, well, I don't want to talk about death. It's like, this is not about death,
Right.
because they're alive when they wrote the will, and they invent obstacles. Stop inventing obstacles. Just do it.
I love it. And speaking of planned giving, some folks may have seen in the chat, but there was a white paper put out by Russell James just a couple of days ago. Russell James
Ah,
and Michael Rosen talking about what you're saying specifically in kind of the COVID context. So I'll send that out to folks as well.
oh, that's great. Yeah,
Tom,
just yeah.
this is awesome. Thanks for doing
Oh,
this.
thank you all. I love the Bloomerang audience. You always show up in big numbers.
Yeah, they're a good group. They're awesome. Reach
All
out to
right.
Tom. Subscribe to his newsletter. Awesome newsletter. It's always chock full of good stuff, actionable items. Follow him on Twitter if you're a Twitter person. He's one of my
Hey,
favorite Twitterers. Twitterers, I think is
tweet,
the
tweet,
word there.
tweet
Um,
twirls.
and speaking of webinars, we got more webinars coming up. We got 4 next week because I'm stuck at home and I love talking to folks. Monday, some of you may not be aware, but there is going to be a Giving Tuesday on May 5th. It was just announced a couple weeks ago. They're going to do 2. They're going to do one on May 5th and then the normal Giving Tuesday. So we asked someone from Giving Tuesday to come on and just share what they have seen worked on their end. So Kat Murphy-Toms, she's on the digital team at Giving Tuesday. So you're going to get advice like straight from the source. There's not going to be any fluff there. So join us if you can, if you're free. If you're not, we got lots of other free webinars next week. I think we got 4, one almost every single weekday. So join us if you can. But we'll call it a day there. Look for an email from me. We'll send out all the goodies. And hopefully we'll talk to you again on another session. So have a good rest of your Friday. Stay safe. We're thinking of all of you, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.